So this is the Crossflow heat exchanger. Heat is transferred from water to air in this experiment. It's a common solution for building HVAC airflow applications. You can vary the fan speeds, the hot and cold water flow rates, and also the hot-cold mix. So the system consists mainly of the two fans, the two heat exchangers, the mixing valves, or the mixing valve, the cold water control valve, and the overall flow control valve. And then you have the visible instrumentation here, the sensors that give you data. So just an overall explanation of how water flows through this experiment. We start with the cold and hot water flow manifolds at the wall. Hot and cold water enter the system via hoses, and then you control the flow rate as well as the hot-cold mix. Cold water flows through heat exchanger 1, and hot water flows through heat exchanger 2. Meanwhile, you have the fans controlling airflow through the wind tunnel to the exit at this end. So now I'll talk about the instrumentation. You have a number of thermocouples, one to measure the air inlet temperature here, one to measure the cold water inlet temperature. Also, and by the way, the cold water inlet temperature is within the enclosure, so it's not visible on the outside. But the cold water outlet temperature sensor is visible here. You also have here, over here, you have 4 thermocouples to measure the air temperature. 1, 2, 3, 4. You have hot water inlet temperature, again in the enclosure. Hot water outlet temperature, again visible outside the enclosure. And then finally, you have 4 thermocouples here at each side of the tunnel measuring the air outlet temperature. You also have a turbine meter inside the enclosure that measures the water flow rate digitally. And finally, there's an anemometer. I'm going to demonstrate use of that. Essentially, if you have airflow through the system, the anemometer can be placed at the end of the tunnel, and you should get a reading on the digital screen here. Now I'll talk about how to start up and shut down the system. So first, at the wall here, you have the hot water manifold. For the Crossflow heat exchanger, you would just turn that flow on. And then you have the cold water manifold. For the Crossflow heat exchanger, turn that water on. And then immediately you have visual confirmation that there is flow through the system at this rotometer here. Data is not actually taken from this piece of instrumentation. The flow data that you get in your spreadsheet is from the turbine meter, which takes digital readings. Okay, so you can control the cold water flow rate with this valve here. You can control the mix of hot and cold water with the mixing valve. And you can control the overall flow rate. So if I turn this down, you should see a drop in the flow rate at the rotometer. And again, if I turn it up, you'll see the float rise in the rotometer. Then you have the fan controls here for fan 1 and fan 2. I'm going to turn them both on to low speed. And now you have airflow through the system. And again, you would use the anemometer to read the airflow rate at the end of the wind tunnel. To shut the system down, just do the same thing, but in reverse. Turn the fans off, and turn the hot and cold water flows off at the wall. So the system is on currently, and when it has reached a steady state set point where you want to take data, you would just come to the Excel spreadsheet and click on the button that says Do One Scan Now. When you do that, numbers begin populating the cells underneath the different columns.